Welcome to the Informed Advocate Podcast. I'm your host, Sharon, the number one self-caregiver authority. This podcast is the intersection of self-care, advocacy, and compassion for self-caregivers. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And so for this episode, we're recognizing Mental Health Awareness Month and National Meditation Month. And what a wonderful pair, because they are related, they're married. And if they're not, we're going to marry them, okay? And so, one thing that we do want to make sure that we explain when it comes to mental health. Because a lot of times when people think of mental health, they think of mental illness. But I want us to really think about it in a very intimate way as it relates to all of us as informed advocates and as self-caregivers. And so this explanation is from the Institute of Mental Health. And it states, mental health is your general state of well-being, state of mind, something that should be looked after. Now, isn't that everybody? Isn't that all of us? That we are looking after our well-being and state of mind in everything that we do, in everything that we say, in everything of how we feel, And another definition or explanation of mental illness. And the Institute of Mental Health states that mental illness, something that disrupts your mental state and interrupts how you feel, think, communicate, and behave. I'm going to read that one more time. Mental illness, something that disrupts your mental state and interrupts how you feel, think, communicate, and behave. Now, when you hear that, who or what comes to your mind? Isn't that a little bit of everybody too? Because we've all had something that disrupts our mental state, interrupts how we feel, how we think, communicate, and behave. So that's any of us on any given day. So I'm using anxiety and depression because they're the most common ones and the most that we all, if we haven't already, experience at some point in our lives. And one thing I really like about this explanation or this description of mental illness is that it has nothing to do with the label. And even though I did just use a label, but it has nothing. But even if you break down depression and break down anxiety in its simplest forms of how you're feeling and how you're thinking, we all at some point of our lives experience those things. And so a lot of times I prefer to use the descriptors than anything else. And I always tell people, do not use labels, And so that is all of us. So we have an explanation or a description of what mental health is and mental illness. And so at some point in all of our lives that we can recognize that. And so for those individuals and for us that may have that may experience, or should I say, more severe symptoms of the disruption and interruptions that we can have when we're supporting others, where we can have more compassion for those individuals because of the fact that we can see ourselves, in that state. And so I believe that when it comes to stigma, it comes more so from a misunderstanding and where people do not want to be associated by something that seems negative, that seems foreign, or especially something that no one talk about. And so when we break it down in its simplest form, we've all experienced some sadness. We've also been some of us experience severe sadness. I know for myself, I really felt like I didn't experience extreme sadness until later on in my life. So now you'll hear people say, now I get it when people say, oh, you never experienced it, but you will one day. And not that you're claiming it or anything. And even with practices of self-care, of meditation, of yoga, it doesn't prevent those things from happening, but it really does help us to be able to regulate ourselves. And it's also good to be able to have friends. And you'll hear some other things that I say when it comes to others, because at the end of the day, it's about us taking care of ourselves so that we can be supportive of others and we can pour into the world and pour into others, whether we're personal self-care givers or we're professional self-care givers. And so as an informed advocate, be aware of where you are with your mental health. And I'm going to say with your mental state in general, because again, at the end of the day, all of us have disruptions. All of us have interruptions in our lives. May not be on a daily basis. And hopefully that is not, because again, remember going back to what stress and trauma is, that can be trauma. Definitely we know it's stress, but that can be trauma because of the impact or the frequency of something. And so the best way to I feel, to get rid of stigma is to normalize talking about the various things that we all experience, because none of us is exempt for having interruptions and disruptions in our lives, in our mental state, even in the way that we're thinking. I mean, even I experience it from time to time, and I had to get myself in check and have good friends to keep me in check as well. And so, again, as an informed advocate, to be aware of where you are with yourself, with your own mental state, and to be open about it. You may not, and for each person, you have the discernment of deciding of when it's okay for you to express. Is it an opportunity for you to seek therapy about it? And I always say at the end of the day, we have to sit with ourselves. And so this is where the self-care really comes into play. And as a self-caregiver, to be able to incorporate meditation. And this is where meditation can be very, very helpful. And in its simplest form, what meditation is, I just kind of like to say, sitting with yourself in quietness, and have that deep self-awareness to be able to reflect. And by doing that, in the process of sitting with yourself, it slows things down within your body. Most people it may not always slow your thoughts down, because most people complain about, I still have racing thoughts. It may not always slow your thoughts down per se, but what it does, it allows you to almost go past your thoughts, if that makes any sense. But it allows you to go deep within yourself, where you are no longer run by your thoughts, where more so, you can go past it. And this is where you can have reflective moments, and it gives you clarity, and it relieves stress. I mean, those are the benefits of it. And one thing that I will say is that when it comes to sitting with yourself, when it comes to whatever name you want to put to it, and a lot of times we talk about mindfulness and things like that, and those are forms of it or derivatives of it, in that at some point in all of our lives, life will have it where it comes to terms with us, where we need to sit down, we need to sit with ourselves. And because our society doesn't teach us and make it seem like something is wrong if you're sitting down too long, our body really doesn't know how to react. And so it thinks something is wrong. And that's why most people say, oh, I just can't sit down. I just can't sit down. And it takes some individuals definitely some work. And so in saying that, there's so many different avenues that you can meditate. And so, there's books you can read. There's so many videos out there. There are podcasts out there. And some people do better doing it by yourself. Some people can do it really well in group. I like a combination. I love it on my own, but I also like doing it in a group as well. And whether it's group in person or in a group online. And so you pick, which one is best for you. For some people, they like guided meditation, some like the quietness. At one time when I was younger, when someone had given me, oh yeah, this meditation, it would definitely help, with insomnia and things like that. And I don't know if it helped or not. I guess you could say, yeah, I did finally go to sleep, but I'm not sure if I fell asleep because of that. And even when I didn't use it, like at nighttime in bed in the past, I just felt like it just wasn't me. But what I discovered once I, start doing it more, learning different ways, is that I would just say at certain times, that guided meditation is not for me. It's almost like if there's too much talking doing the meditation. I think it depends on the pace of it. It's just not for me. It's, I don't want to use, it's not the word agitate. It activates me, in a sense. It's kind of like it doesn't calm me down. So I do get it where people say. So in saying that, meaning that you find what works for you, there's so many different styles. And so I'm pretty sure you will find something for you. And what I will say about that, and even though I say, like, when it comes to the quietness and when it comes to a guided one, at some point in your practice, if you can get to where it is the silence, and I would say even if it is with music, with no words, that's beneficial. So meaning to be able just to sit with yourself in quietness and do it for 1 minute, do it for 2 minutes, get it up to 10. If you get it up to 20, and there have been some trainings that I've gone to, or some individuals that I follow that I consider, I guess you say, a virtual mentor, meaning that I don't know them, but I've had watched lots of their videos for some individuals, in that some say, hey, if you're not meditating for close to an hour, that's not meditation. I do get what they're saying. The only time I'm able to do that is in a guided meditation. I haven't been able to do that on my own. I can do good 20, 30 minutes on my own, complete silence. But, whether I'm by myself or in a group, anything more than that, I pretty much need some support from others. So again, this is such a really good month. Again, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, to be able to really recognize where we all maybe have disruptions and interruptions in our lives. And for people who may experience more of that, where we can have more compassion, and as we're doing our own inner work, where we'll be able to sit there with them and allow them. Some people just need to talk, you know, and and to be able to help and support them if they need to seek resources, if they need to go to therapy, if whatever it is that they need, because each person is different and need to be able to have the choice of what's beneficial for them. Because again, for some individuals, traditional therapy is wonderful for a lot of people. And then for others, there are other ways of therapy and other things, because we have to make sure again that we are healing from the inside out, from head to toe, everywhere. And so thank you for joining me for this episode, for this, I want to say a special episode, because also this is also, should I say, this past Sunday was Mother's Day. So, what a wonderful way of celebrating. And then I also have to acknowledge, for some individuals, it may not be that wonderful when it comes to that. And so I have to acknowledge that too, because of the stress and trauma that some mothers may have contributed to the disruptions and interruptions in a person's life. But one thing I would like to say for those who are informed advocates and who are self-caregivers, because again, when it comes to self-caregivers, that's all of us, because all of us, we're taking care of ourselves, is that you have the capacity to heal. You have what you need. There are tools out there. There are people out there waiting on you. And just like for this podcast is for you. Is to gain some knowledge, is to gain some insight into different ways of thinking, of how you can support yourself and how you can support others as well. And of course, this is an educational podcast that you can use in your healing and you can share with others. So again, thank you for joining me for this special episode.